In this lead generation guide, you're going to learn a proven 7-step process for building a fully automated lead generation machine to book qualified prospects for your discovery and strategy calls. Hey, I'm Jason, and if you're looking for the latest in digital marketing tactics and strategies to grow your business online, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, timestamps below as we go through this 7-step process. Here's the diagram that we'll be going through. I know there's a lot of steps here, but we're going to take it step by step, and by the end of this deep dive training, you're going to have everything you need to know to create your own automated system to attracting qualified leads for your sales calls. Now, to take a quick step back, all we're doing here is 3 things. Now, there's 7 steps here, but we're really only accomplishing 3 goals. Number 1, we're identifying our prospect pool. Number 2, we're collecting that contact information. And then number 3, we're magnifying the mess. So we are making sure that we're not going to waste ad dollars on anyone but our perfect ideal customer. We're going to collect that contact information. And then, of course, we're going to, using our lead magnet and our email sequence, magnify the mess and pre-qualify people so we only get on the phone with people who are actually a good fit for whatever our service is. So again, timestamps below. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of a deeper dive into each one of these steps, and then we'll take a really deep dive into each one of these steps so you have everything you need in order to build this funnel for yourself. So of course, this funnel starts with a traffic source. Now in step number 7, we're going to go through the only 3 types of traffic sources that you should be looking at, and this is going to be YouTube ads, Google search ads, and if you're going the organic content route, then you're either going to be doing 3 blog posts or 3 YouTube videos. You don't need to make a bunch of content in order for this to work. And then of course, if you are on a really tight budget, we'll go through how to properly do digital networking so you don't come across as someone who's just promoting themselves in random Facebook and LinkedIn groups. And wherever the traffic is coming from, we're going to drive them to our landing page or lead capture page where we're going to collect at least their name and email. We'll get to why you don't need more information than that when we get to the landing page section. And the reason people are going to give us their contact information, not just because we're asking for it, but we're going to use something called a lead magnet. Now, this lead magnet, there are lots of different types of lead magnets out there. You may have heard of some. We'll go through the best type, and then we'll go into the only 5 emails you need to send in order to get someone on the phone with you. And then we'll actually talk about how to create an automated booking system, as well as what you should include in the pre-call survey to really make sure you only get on the phone with qualified prospects. And we'll go over a simple sales script and some strategies you can use to help increase your close rates on those sales calls. So with that, let's go ahead, jump right into the very first step, which is actually going to be your lead magnet. So it might look a little weird because we're starting in the middle of our process, but the lead magnet is really what's going to power your entire funnel process. Now, there are 3 main types of lead magnets you can create. You can create a text-based lead magnet, PDF or Google Doc, a video-based lead magnet, which is essentially a mini video sales letter or webinar, which I don't recommend, or interactive, a Google Sheet or a quiz, and also don't recommend doing one of those. So here we're just going to dive straight into the 4 main types of text-based lead magnets you can create. And the reason you want to do a text-based lead magnet here is simple. It's the fastest one to create. And when you create this system for the first time, it's going to take a lot of time. And then you're going to actually realize that you can create multiple lead magnets, and you'll be able to start to figure out which lead magnet attracts the right type of customer. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So let's go through these 4 different types of lead magnets. So the first one you have is an audit. And this is simply where you're going to magnify the mess. You want someone to go through a particular process or answer some questions and realize that the problem that is in front of them is bigger than they thought, or you want to show how if they don't address it now, it's really going to be an issue. And hopefully you can see how this is going to be valuable in setting up people to get on a discovery call or strategy call with you now versus 2 or 3 weeks from now. Now, as an example of an audit, we have an analytics checklist, and this essentially goes through someone's analytics account and shows them all of the settings that are messed up and how they can improve their reporting. So something that is very important with your audit is there are some things in there that someone can fix on their own without having to get on a strategy call with you. So with our audit, we showed them different settings they could change and some essentially virtual levers they could pull in order to fix the way analytics was processing their website data but we didn't go into all of the technical aspects of, okay, you need to edit the header tag on your website and then insert this code there, and then you need to go to all your landing page and insert this code here, right? We left that for the strategy call and our actual service, but we made sure that there were simple things that someone, if they didn't get on a strategy call with us, at least their analytics tracking would actually be improved. So you want to make sure you do something like that with your audit. Now, the next type of lead magnet you can create is a template. And this is simply organizing a process or having them go through a series of questions in order for them to be more successful. As an example, we have a Google Tag Manager playbook where we help people organize all of the tracking codes, and it also includes some things to help them properly set up their conversion tracking inside of Tag Manager. And it's a great complement to someone who's just getting started with all these tracking codes and trying to figure out what should fire when and what should fire where, right? So the next type is a resource guide. And this is simply a list of sources or contact information that your ideal customer would find valuable. The last one on this list is simply a report where you are condensing a bunch of analysis and information. A great example of this is, let's say we were a financial advisor, we could create a report about the best dividend stocks to buy now or the best 5 stocks for a retirement portfolio. And of course, we would do all of the analysis and research for our ideal customer. So whichever type of lead magnet you decide to make, the quickest way to figure out what to actually include in your lead magnet is answering 2 very basic questions that will actually drive the copywriting for the rest of your funnel. So this next part, you're going to want to take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes and maybe even sleep on it, but it's going to make the rest of your funnel building process so much easier. So here are the 2 questions. First, you want to ask, what results are my ideal customer after? And then second, you want to ask, what roadblocks are they facing? Or what roadblocks do they think they're facing? Because oftentimes we can look at a situation that our customers are, our potential customers are in and say, oh yeah, you need to just fix that. And they'll look at it and say, no, I think I really need to fix this, right? And so we want to make sure that we're always doing it from the perspective of our prospect or ideal customer, and not from where we are sitting with all of our experience and saying, yeah, you should go over there, where they're looking up and saying, no, I think I really should go over here, right? So I know that's a little silly, but you do want to make sure that even if you find the roadblock silly or you think it's trivial or you don't think it's important, put it on this list, because if it's important to your prospect, then it's something that you want to address in your lead magnet, on your landing page, or in your email sequence, or on your sales call. So as an example, you can of course pause. Here's a list of results and roadblocks or objections that we might come up with if we were a Facebook advertising agency and we were trying to get new Facebook ads clients. So we would list out the results that potential clients would want out of their Facebook advertising, and of course the problems or roadblocks that they might be facing in trying to make their Facebook ads more successful. We'll use this as a case study just moving forward. So the next step in the process, once you know what your lead magnet is of course creating your landing page, because you can't create a landing page if you don't know what your lead magnet is. And the good news is you can create as many lead magnets or as many landing pages as you want. You can always go back and create more and test more in the future. In fact, I highly recommend doing that. So with your landing page, you don't need anything fancy here. I think this is one of the areas where a lot of new marketers and business owners get caught up in all the fancy software and all the fancy things you can do. But at the end of the day, we only need to follow a simple 4-step framework and have a few key elements on our landing page. And we'll do this using the AIDA framework and some proven copywriting formulas. So go ahead and hit that like button if you're still watching. Remember, timestamps below to come back and skip around here. So the AIDA framework is what we're going to use in order to be successful with our landing pages and make sure we have all the elements we need for a high converting landing page. Now, AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. And that's all you need to do on your landing page. There's 4 elements there, and with some copywriting formulas, you are good to go. So with attention, you want a headline and subheadline that clearly communicates the results of the offer. So you already went through the exercise listing out all of the results. That's what you're going to talk about in the headline. You might even include a roadblock, but we'll get to that when we go through the headline copywriting formula. Then the next element here, interest, we want bullet points and images is of how the offer saves them time, money, or just makes their life easier. There are lots of different copywriting formulas here, but focus on those three and you're going to be successful with your first couple of landing pages. You can always get fancy later, right? So this next one, desire, we want social proof. So reviews, testimonials, trust seals, media appearances. Obviously, most of us don't have those, and so I'll go through a very simple strategy for adding a little bit of social proof without crossing the ethics line and just making up testimonials like most people do, and people can see through fake testimonials. So definitely don't do that on your landing pages. And finally, we have action, and this is the button or form where you collect that contact information. Now, before we go through an actual example, let's take a step back and talk about the last step in our AIDA framework, and that's action. When it comes to collecting contact information, the more you ask for, the lower your conversion rate. So when you ask for 2 pieces of information, your conversion rate's probably going to be up here. When you ask for 5 pieces of information, your conversion rate's probably going to be down here. And so what we want to do is ask for as little information as we need in order to get a high conversion rate here. And then through the rest of our process, we can begin to filter people out. Now, obviously, if you get a ton of unqualified prospects, well, congratulations, you are just crushing it with traffic. Then you can go ahead and start asking for more information in order to reduce your conversion rate and reduce the number of people who get into your funnel. So you'll see this with larger company landing pages. They're going to be asking a ton of different questions. Don't copy that. You don't want to do that when you're just starting. So all you need is the name and the email. And that's it. We'll get the rest of the information you need for your discovery and sales calls later on in the funnel. So now let's go through this example. And this is an example of how we format most of our landing pages. You can see it's a very simple design and it works. We can get upwards of 30 to 40% conversion rates on a simple landing page just like this. And this landing page actually doesn't even ask for the name. It just asks for the email, and we can collect the name later on in the process. Of course, it's up to you. Now, the most important element on this page is actually going to be your headline, because your headline is going to be answering the question of, is this for me, and what's in it for me for your prospects? So we go back to our brainstorm of results and roadblocks. There's 2 simple headline formulas you can use to easily create attention-grabbing headlines. So here we are: how to result without roadblock, and how to result even if roadblock. So of course, you can always pause. But when it comes to using headline formulas, all you need to do is plug in a different result and a different roadblock, and you're good to go. So let's go through the first headline here: how to cut your Facebook cost per click costs in half without starting all over. So you see the phrase cut your Facebook ad costs in half, or cost per click in half, is the result that they ultimately want. They want to pay less for their clicks. And then what do they think they have to do in order to get that? Well, maybe they think they have to start all over. Maybe they think all the money they've already wasted, that there's no way to actually figure out which ads or headlines or copy actually worked, because it's just all a mess and it makes no sense. Well, if we can say, hey, all that money you spent actually can be leveraged to make you successful in the future, then that could help us get more people to actually download our, let's say, Facebook ads or Facebook campaign audit here. And then for our other headline formula here, we have how to constantly generate leads even if you've never seen a profit from Facebook ads before. And so we're talking about a result: constantly generate leads, and then the roadblock or experience that they've had in the past, even if it's never worked for you. So there will be a lot of people that might hit this landing page who've run a couple hundred or thousands of dollars in Facebook, more like thousands of dollars in Facebook ads, and they haven't seen a return. And so they'll look at it and go, okay, well, you know what? It must just not work for me. And so by addressing that internal dialogue, that roadblock, we're saying, hey, you know what? Just because it hasn't worked in the past doesn't mean there isn't light at the end of the tunnel. Doesn't mean you can't be successful. And that's as complicated as your headline writing formula or headline copywriting needs to be. So again, timestamps below. You can always come back to this slide. And for your call to action button, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be as simple as get started now, download now, or access now. And of course, here's some other formulas that you can use if you want to get a little more fancy with your call to action button. So if we go back to our example here, you can see see how to 3x your ROAS, return on ad spend, in the next 7 days without increasing your ad spend. And something to note here, ROAS, return on ad spend, there are going to be a lot of new Facebook marketers who actually have no idea what that means. And so when you're creating your headlines, you do want to make sure that you use vocabulary and words that your prospects would understand. For us, we would want to filter out people who don't know what ROAS is yet, because those people would be too new to the Facebook ad ecosystem in order for us to actually be valuable in running their Facebook ads. Of course, fictitious, I don't actually run Facebook ads anymore. This is just an example. So you can go ahead and use this exact framework and design for your own landing pages. Again, you can see it's very, very basic. And I want to point out at the bottom here, where we normally have some sort of trust seals or reviews or testimonials, you can go ahead and put a picture of yourself or whoever the face of your company is, and then just a quick blurb on how you think the audit is going to be valuable to your prospect. And this is a way you can kind of get around the whole fact that you don't actually have testimonials, you don't have a bunch of trust seals, you haven't been on a bunch of media outlets, because you just want to put a face to what's being offered. People want to come to this page and say, can I trust it? And so if you can't point to other people who found it trustworthy, at least you can put your face there and show them that you are a real person, you're a real company, and you're not just some other random landing page that's going to scam them or sell their contact information. And I'm skipping over bullet points on purpose here because bullet points take such a long time to write, and it could be literally the length of this video alone. But just, you only need 3 bullet points, one about money, one about saving time, and one about making the process really, really easy or uncovering a big mistake that they might be making. So as long as you cover those 3, you're good to go. And you want odd number bullet points. For some reason, odd numbers just seem to convert better. So once you have your landing page, you have your lead magnet, go ahead and hit that like button, comment below if you have any questions. It's time to write your emails. Now, with your email sequence, we're not going to go crazy here, okay? We're normal people talking to real people, right? We're not going to create some crazy sequence where there's 27 messages and they all are automated and based upon whether they click this button or that button or they read this long on this page. You don't need any of that. 5 basic emails to get someone on the phone with you. That's all you need. You're going to empathize, energize, and expand with these 5 emails. You don't need some complex sequence. Just empathize, energize, and expand. So we're going to empathize with their current experiences. We're going to energize them to take action, and then we're going to expand the dangers of inaction. So go ahead and take a look at this diagram that goes into detail into every single email that you're going to send. And yes, we're going to go through each one of those. These, again, timestamps below. So let's go ahead and kick things off. The first email in your sequence here, your lead magnet, is going to be very simple and straightforward. You're just delivering the lead magnet. You're delivering that PDF or Google Doc, that audit, that resource guide, that template, or report. And then you're going to have a couple quick bullet points as to how and why it's valuable. You're just going to restate what was on the landing page. You're just reinforcing their decision to give you their contact information. That's all you're doing here. No sales whatsoever. Just, here's a lead magnet. Hope you find it valuable. Here's why you're smart for asking for it. That's it. Then the next day, these are all going to be one after another. So on day number 2, you're going to talk about the big roadblock they face. And remember, when we're talking about roadblocks, these are roadblocks that they think is in the way of their success, not what you think is in the way of their success. We'll go through an actual full example on how to write and structure these emails. Here I'm just going through the basics of what to include in them. And then in the PS section, you have a soft call to action. And the soft call to action is something to the effect of, hey, if you're still struggling with whatever you talked about throughout the entire email, I'd love to hop on the phone with you and see if we could be helpful. That's it. That's as complex as it needs to be. You don't have to do any fancy persuasion tactics or anything. It's just, hey, if this email relates to you, I'd like to be helpful to you. Let's book a call and see if I can. That's it. That's all you have to do. I'm hitting the mic. That's it. That's all you have to do. So let's go ahead and go to day number 3, email number 3. This is going to be your hero results story. So with your hero results story, this can either be a personal story of success or a testimonial story of success, and it should mirror the situation that your ideal customer is in. So you'll see when we go through a sample email like this, that the situation should match the situation of your prospect so that it's relatable. Should you make things up here? No, please do not make things up. People can tell when you're lying in an email. It does not work out very well. So either use a testimonial or use a personal story. And if you don't have one of those, then go ahead and just repeat the roadblock again. And that's all you need to do. Okay, so email number 4, day number 4 here, benefits are closer than they think. So here, we're gonna be a little harder on selling and close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. And so we know the roadblocks and we know the situation that our prospect is in, and we know the results that they're ultimately after, and there's a big space in between it, right? That's why they've opted in for your lead magnet. And so you want to close that distance, and so you wanna talk about how actually it's not as complex or it's not as far away as they think, and then you want to position the solution, the bridge between where they are and where they need to be, as the strategy call. And so the best way to do this is through another story. I'll go through an example email on how you can go ahead and write this. So if you're not sure, like, okay, well, how do I connect those dots? You're just talking pie in the sky right now. Don't worry, we'll go through a specific email and you'll see exactly how this formula plays out. And then finally, magnify the mess. This is where we get aggressive. So if there was ever a time to be salesy, or you have something where you're a little uncomfortable and you feel like, yeah, I could say that, but it might offend people, include it in this email, because it's email number 5. It's the last email in this sequence. It's not like you're throwing a Hail Mary. You're not just saying, frankly, I think you're an idiot for not booking a call with me. We're not going that far, but maybe take it 2 or 3 steps back, something that you may feel uncomfortable saying or might make your prospect feel a little bit uncomfortable, especially when you essentially just rip the Band-Aid off and you say, okay, real talk here. Here's what happens when you don't take care of this. Here's what happens if you just let this keep going the way it's going, right? So you're magnifying the mess of what's going to happen if they don't fix it now, or magnifying the mess of what's going to happen 2 to 3 months from now when they don't address it here and now. And of course, in the PS section, again, you can have a much harder call to action saying, look, if you don't want this to happen to you, if you really want to fix this and make sure that you're on the right track or you don't fall off the track, book a strategy call with me now. It's free, complimentary, however you want to phrase that. So that does it for the 5 email sequence. Again, timestamps below. You can always come back to this diagram. Now let's go through how to actually write this email. So it's great to know what to put in the email, but how do you actually write these emails? And it's best to use story. So we'll go through a very basic 4-step formula here. So first, we're going to build curiosity with the subject and preview line. We're going to hook our prospects in with the first 2 lines of our email. We're going to use a story in the body paragraphs to communicate the roadblocks that are being overcome or talk about the results that are closer than they think. And then in the PS section and 2/3 of the way through the body, you'll actually begin to reveal what the call to action is going to be. So let's go through each one of these individually, and then we'll go through an example. So first we have curiosity. So this is the subject and preview line of your email. So the preview line is that text that you can manually edit in your autoresponder. If you don't have an autoresponder, I recommend using MailerLite. I'll link up to them in the description. It is an affiliate link, so if you do decide to upgrade your plan, we do receive a small fee as a way to support this channel. So with that preview line and subject line, you want to build curiosity. The easiest way to do this is with a question. Are your low prices driving potential clients away? Or you could rephrase it and say something to the effect of, looks like your prices are too low, or I think your prices are a little low. So whatever you do with your headline and that line of text that you can edit, you want to be building curiosity, and your goal here is to just get someone to open the email. That's all you're trying to do. Just get someone to open the email, and then your hook takes over, making sure that now that you've grabbed that attention, you actually keep it through the story in your email. And the best way to hook a viewer in is to start at the climax of the story. So think of this as the first 2 lines, the first 2 sentences. So we have some examples here. I'll skip to the second one. Every time I found myself in the same place, the glossy white abyss, as if it would be different this time. And this would be an opening line to something about dieting, right? The glossy white abyss would be the inside of the fridge at, I don't know, 12:30 at night or something, staring at the tub of yogurt or ice cream or something to that effect. So you can take a seemingly normal story and really dramatize it by focusing on the emotional elements of it. So this next example here, after 3 days of silence, my phone finally rang. I could feel the pressure of my pent-up anxiety ready to burst as I reached for my phone, or something to that effect. And that could be an example of someone waiting for a potential client to call them back, or waiting for a job, the result of a job interview, or waiting for a date to call them back, whatever it may be, whatever really important phone call they're waiting for. And you notice with these two examples, it's not something that's super out of this world. Having to wait for an important phone call, or maybe struggling with not eating the terrible food that's in your fridge, is something that a lot of people may have already experienced. And depending upon the niche or industry, a lot of the prospects would have experienced those things. And so we're just adding some drama to the story, and we're focusing on the emotions. Now, obviously, negative emotions pull people in a lot more than positive emotions, but I'll leave it up to you how negative you want your emails to be. So however you hook readers in, you're going to then use a simple three-step story formula. You're going to talk about the setting, you're going to talk about the roadblock and the solution, and of course the solution is tied to booking a discovery call with you. It's a great story formula to empathize, energize, and then expand upon whatever problem or situation your prospect is in. And of course, we wrap up with the email with a call to action. So the solution kind of blends into the call to action. And of course, in the PS section, the postscript, you're going to have an explicit call to action to book a discovery call with you. So let's go through an actual email so you can see how each one of these elements play out. Again, timestamps below to come back to these. 43 minutes and 28 seconds in. My palms are starting to get sweaty. Up until this point, I've been calm. But I'm coming to the hard part. The part I never know exactly what to do or how to do it. It's been almost a year and I just can't get over this last hurdle. And so here we're starting at the very, very climax of the story. Now this is actually tied to the pricing headlines we talked about earlier as an example. So there is a little bit of context to the hook. It's not as if someone's coming into this and they have no idea what the story could be about, because the headline did build some curiosity and gives it away. So we have at least enough headline. Your email subject line, when I said headline, your email subject line gives your prospects enough of a framework where you can jump straight into this hook. Obviously, if they didn't read the subject line, then this would really make no sense. But let's go ahead and move on to the setup. So I've done the hook. So now we take a step back to the setup. I'm on my third sales call of the day, and this happens every dang time. It's now just 90 seconds away. I can feel it. The question I never know how to answer. And so that's the setup. You're on a sales call. You've had a couple sales calls today, and there's a question coming that I don't know how to answer. And this is actually based on a true story. I to this day still kind of struggle with answering that question, but we'll get to what that question ultimately is. But you can see here that the setup doesn't have to be some lengthy process. Simply by saying sales call, third of the day, implies that I do quite a bit of sales calls, I used to, and then inside of the sales call, we're coming to an important question. Now, anyone who's done sales before and feels the butterflies can probably begin to fill in the blanks as to what that question might be. So here we go, the roadblock. How much do you charge? Gulp. Will I get it right this time? Unfortunately, most of the time I'd get it wrong, really wrong. Some ended in a high ticket sale, others ended with a sense of dread for the low price I'd settled for. So here is the low point of the story, the big problem, the big roadblock, what needs to be overcome, what needs to be fixed, which is saying the right number for the sales price, right? And so especially when this is based on your experience or previous client's experience, this is going to be a lot more relatable to your future clients or potential prospects here. So then we go into the solution. It was out of frustration of my own cowardice that I created a simple system for pricing, a carefully formulated structure to keep me confident and profitable with every client. And so there's the presentation of the solution. And at this point, the next paragraph, if we were doing a call to action for a discovery call, then we could say something to the effect of, hop on a call with me and I can help you apply this to your own business, right? Or your own services, or help you with your own sales calls. And that would be the pitch for your discovery or strategy call. You can see it doesn't have to be super salesy. We're just telling a story, we're empathizing, and we're energizing them to take action by saying, hey, the solution I came up with is available to you on a free call. Let's just have a conversation. And that's as complicated as it needs to be. Okay, let's go back to the email. I'm starting to ramble. Call to action here. So the call to action. If you've ever struggled to determine what you're worth or how much you should be charging, check out this video here. Keep building the business you love. And then the PS section. PS, there's no one size fits all when it comes to pricing services. So here I'm handling an objection, and then you have to balance your worth with your client's ability to pay. Watch now to make sure you aren't leaving money on the table. And that's as complex as the call to action needs to be. I think I've said that 3 times now. So I'll go ahead and stop. That is your 5 email sequence. And then that is a specific breakdown of an exact email that we actually currently use that you can use for, well, not the same, don't copy the email, but copy the format of the email that you can use in your own 5 email sequence. And so that does it for rapport building. And hopefully up until this point, you've collected some contact information. You've delivered your lead magnet, you've sent off some emails, you've done a tremendous amount of work. Now it's time to talk about what do we do when we finally get someone to click that button? What happens when someone clicks that link in your email and actually goes to book a sales or strategy call with you? And that's the next step in our process, which is going to be your booking page, your booking system. So there are 3 main things you want to do with your booking system. You want to automate, you want to assess, and you want to affirm. So we want to automate the scheduling process, assess the client to service fit with a pre-call assessment, and then we are going to affirm the meeting time. Because there's nothing worse than scheduling out your day around a bunch of sales calls and people actually don't show up. So we want to make sure that we actually confirm those times so that when we do call our prospects, it's important that you make the phone call, not them calling you. When you make that call, someone actually does in fact pick up, and you don't get a message machine and then 30 minutes later, oh, sorry, I was at the grocery store and I completely forgot, right? So that's never any fun. So let's go through what you can do with your booking system. Now, the good news is there's a lot of software out there already that can help automate this process for you, and I highly recommend you automate this process even if you feel like you don't need to. Just the perceived value of your time will be greatly increased if you send people to a link to book a call with you via a system, instead of you doing back and forth emails, what's your time zone, when are you available, and then of course the biggest problem where you send 2 people the same time blocks and then they come back and ask for the same time, right? Because of all the time delay. So just use an automated system. It's worth the cost. It's only going to cost you a couple dollars a month. And the 3 I recommend using are Calendly, Set Once, and Book Like a Boss. You can also use Google Calendar if you are if you're using a G Suite for Business account. You can actually set up appointments that people can go to your calendar and click on. Although I really don't like this process because it's not going to allow you to automate the pre-call assessment. So I have that on there as a budget solution, but one of the other 3, Calendly, Set Once, or Book Like a Boss, are definitely going to be a whole lot better. And whatever software you wind up using, your booking page is most likely going to take care of these elements for you. But here are the 4 elements that you're going to want on your booking page. Number 1, you're going to want a headline, and your headline does not need to use any copywriting formulas at this point. It's simply going to give a name to whatever your call is. I'll go through an example of that in a moment. Then you're, of course, going to have a way for someone to schedule the booking calendar, have a picture of yourself just to reinforce some trust and personability here. And of course, a call to action where all you are doing is collecting their name, you're collecting their email, and you're collecting their phone number. When you get into how to do the sales call, you need that phone number. I highly recommend doing phone numbers as opposed to Zoom meetings or Google Hangouts or a Skype chat, but we'll get more into that in a bit. So those are the 3 things you're going to want to collect. So here's an example of what your booking page might look like. You'll have a basic headline at the top. Just give a name to your strategy call. So instead of just calling it free discovery call or free strategy call, in this particular instance, we'd call it Facebook campaign strategy call, right? So we're just being specific with what type of call it is. And as you can see here, we have a very simple subheadline, complimentary strategy call to improve your campaign's return on ad spend. That's it. We're not doing any sales at this point. Someone's clicked the link, they're ready to get on the phone with you. Pick a time that works best for you, and I will give you a call at our arranged time. So it's very important that you do include that you're going to be the one giving them a call at the arranged time. So there's no question as to how this is going to take place or when this is going to take place. Then, of course, they can go ahead and choose their date and their time. A little pop-up will come up asking to confirm with their contact information. And here's an example of what an actual booking page looks like from Book Like a Boss. We just went ahead and created one real quick so you could see what it looks like. And you can see it follows the same formula as our example, and it's nothing really complex here. Whatever booking system you choose will really handle this for you. Now, what comes next is not going to be handled by your booking system, and this is your final check to make sure that you only get on the phone with people who are qualified, ready, and able to do business with you. I guess qualified covers the next two, but I just want to be really clear that you definitely do not want to skip this next part. And this is going to be the part of the booking system where you assess the client to service fit. So the best way to do this is just use a basic Google Forms. There's software out there that can help complicate this process, but Google Forms really is the simplest and best way to go about doing this. And this is going to be your pre-call assessment. So we're making sure that they are actually a good fit. Now, these sections may be a little broad, so here is an example that you can literally copy for yourself. Again, timestamps you can pause. All you have to do is fill in the blanks with the subjects to whatever your niche or industry is. So at the top here, we are collecting their contact information, and then we're asking what their 12-month goal is. So we could say, what is your 12-month goal for losing weight, for your relationships, for building more muscle, for your upcoming triathlon, or for your campaign, your Facebook campaign growth. So whatever it may be, make it very specific to what you're talking about. Then the second goal-related question should be some sort of drop-down and asking, what is your primary goal right now? So for our Facebook ads audit, we're going to ask, are you doing brand awareness? Are you trying to get leads? Are you trying to drive sales? Are you trying to drive foot traffic if you're actually allowed to be open? And so you want to have a big overarching idea of where it's their big 12-month goal, where they're trying to go. And then we want to know, what are they trying to accomplish right now, as in the next couple of months? And the right now is going to help you understand how you can actually prescribe a good solution for them on the sales call. So the next two questions are going to deal with their experience. So we want to know what situation they are in, and then we also want to know what stage of growth they are in. So what kind of blank are you? So what kind of athlete are you? Or what kind of business are you? And so we're looking for them to classify themselves. If we're talking about triathletes, have you done 3 triathlons? Have you done 10 triathlons? Is this your first triathlon, right? That's going to matter in terms of whatever types of coaching you would be offering them. And then when it comes to what stage are you in, then you just want to know their experience level or what they are currently struggling with. So with our triathlete example, well, we've technically know what experience level they are because we asked them to classify themselves by the number of triathlons they've done. So with this next question, we might ask specific questions about where they're struggling in their training. Are you finding that the cycling is the problem, or is it swimming is, pulling your time down, or is it the run part that's really messing you up? So you can think about experience, and then you can think about specific things that they might be trying to work on. Or with our Facebook ads audit, we would ask, are you services? Are you agency? Are you e-commerce? Are you a brick and mortar services? Are you digital products? And then we could go into how long someone's been in business. Are you brand new? Are you bootstrapping? Are you scaling? Are you in decline and you're trying to get your business back to where it was, which is most of us, right? And so you just want to understand their experience level and how they classify themselves in the context of your niche or industry. And second to last, you want some sort of numbers question to let you know how much money they have to spend or how much money they're willing to spend, or you could use how much money they've spent in the past. You just need something here to give you an idea whether or not this person is actually qualified to do business with you from a financial standpoint. And this isn't about convincing them that you're worth it. This is about making sure that you're not trying to sell someone a $5,000 Facebook course when they've only run a couple $100 in Facebook ads and they're just not a good fit for you anyway. So that's what we're looking at here. Not necessarily can they afford it, but also should you be offering the service to this particular person. And then finally, we have expectations. And this is just going to be an open-ended, if you could ask 2 questions, what would they be? And you just want to make sure that you are going to be able to have this person, whether or not they do business with you, walk away from the call satisfied that they got their questions answered. This is also going to help you understand their expectations for the call as well. So speaking of the call, that's the last step in this process. Hit that like button if you're still watching, and that's going to be your discovery or strategy call. Now, we could do a video 2 or 3 times as long on everything in the discovery call. So we're going to literally 1%, not even 80-20, 1% the sales call process, and go through a simple 5-step script as well as 7 tips to help you with your sales calls. And to keep things simple with your strategy call, you're going to lead, listen, and learn. Lead the direction of the call, so you are the one steering the conversation. Listen so you can prescribe, and then learn so you can empathize. Now, something that's very important with your strategy calls, of course, we've gone through this long diagram here. We are at the end, and then we'll go all the way back to the beginning, is to make sure that you call on the dot. Now, I highly recommend keeping things simple. Just use a plain old phone. You don't need to get fancy with software. I have found that the best sales calls that I've had have just used a basic phone as opposed a smartphone, but a basic phone as opposed to doing something complex where you're trying to do video, because there are just so many other elements that you have to take care of as soon as video becomes involved. So just keep things simple. Use your smartphone, call them right on the dot, and your sales calls will go a lot more smoothly. We don't need to add any tech headaches or pauses, especially when it comes to the close. I've had way too many times where Zoom or something else decides to freeze right when it's time to talk about pricing. So let's go ahead and go through the 5 steps of your sales call. So we have agenda, evaluate, prescribe, price, and of course, objections. So let's go through this one by one. First, we have the agenda. This is the small talk and setting the direction in the beginning of your conversation. So you'll have 1 to 2 minutes of small talk, and then you'll just jump straight into, okay, so here's what I have planned for the call today. I'd like to go through what your current situation is. I'd like to learn about, XYZ. And if you can tie whatever your agenda is to something that they've shared with you in the pre-call assessment survey, huge bonus points, because there are a lot of people who do discovery and sales calls who have those pre-call surveys and then never read them. And it's clear. I've actually been on some where halfway through the conversation, I realized the person did not read anything that they asked for and I sent to them. And obviously the sale didn't go too well once I realized that. So make sure that doesn't happen with your prospects. If you ask for the information, make sure you look at it before the call. Then we're going to go through the evaluate phase where you listen and you empathize. And during this part of the conversation, it is 95-5. 95% of the talking is done by them. In fact, 90% of all talking is done by the prospect and not you, but we'll get to that in a little bit here. So during this part of the process, you are listening and understanding. That's it. You're hearing out their situation, you're hearing out their frustration, you're hearing out their goals, and that's what evaluating is all about. You should be taking notes at this point, and sometimes there will be awkward pauses, and you'll just say, oh, give me a second, I'm taking some notes, and then once you take notes, you ask a follow-up question, and whenever you ask a follow-up question, always, I'm getting into the tips here, but whenever you ask a follow-up question, always tie it to something they just said. You'd be surprised how many people are on sales calls. They don't actually listen to what's being said. They're just going through their script and saying, okay, what are your goals? All right. Oh, that's great. So if you could achieve that, what would life be like in the next 12 months? And so instead of saying, what would life be like? If you could say, okay, based upon, your dog passed away and, you're really sad and want to share that grief with others. If you could, what would life look like once you're able to share that grief? That's a really weird example. I apologize for that. That was off the cuff. So you don't want to be off the cuff like that. You want to be able to look at your notes and then properly respond. I'll get off my soapbox there. So then we get to prescribe. So this is probably going to be 30 or 40 minutes into the conversation, and you want to restate the situation and problems that your prospect has been talking about, and then say, based upon that, I think I have something that can help. Would you be interested in hearing about it? So you ask their permission to pitch them. If they say, no, I'm not really interested, then go ahead and end the call. There's no point in continuing. Or you go into, okay, I saw in the pre-call assessment, you asked 2 questions, you answer those questions, and then you end the call. So if they don't give you permission to go through the pitch or present your solution, then don't bother, right? Don't bother. Don't try and prescribe something when someone doesn't actually want to be helped or want the problem to be solved. Some people just like complaining. So then we go to the price. And so this is where you present the offer. You've presented your offer during prescribe, and you begin answering their questions, and they'll start asking, okay, well, what about this or what about that? And it's a normal conversation, just like having a cup of coffee, back and forth, and you wait for them to ask the price. So the prescribe phase doesn't end until someone asks you, okay, well, how much does it cost? Because you don't want to bring it up. I think I've had a couple sales calls, but one in particular I can remember was really weird because it actually ended and the people on the other line actually did not ask what the price was. They just agreed to the whole project, and at that point it was one of the largest clients we'd ever had, and I was supposed to send them a contract for thousands of dollars, and they didn't know what the price was. Now, obviously there was some back and forth and we figured out a payment plan, but for the most part, someone's actually going to ask what the price is, and that's when this price section starts. So you want to wait for that, and then you tell them the price, and then you just shut up. Don't say anything. Don't say a word. And then the objections will roll in. So the price is actually the shortest part, but it can be the hardest because you answer the question and you don't say anything, and then you wait for the objections to roll in, and then you continue the normal tone, and you continue the conversation, and you casually handle objections one by one. Now, of course, sales calls are a lot more complicated than this. There's a lot more intricacies. So I'm going to rapid fire through 7 tips to help you with your sales calls, but I also recommend checking out the book by Brian Tracy. It's $10 on Amazon. You don't need to buy some fancy high-ticket closer course. Just go to Amazon, buy a couple books on sales. Brian Tracy's a great place to start, and you will have everything you need to be successful with your sales. So let's go ahead and go through these 7 successful tips for sales calls. Number 1, I've said it 3 times already because it's so important. Call on the dot. Something that I do, I know it's creepy. I will pick up my phone, I will dial, and then I will wait 30 seconds after whatever the time is, and then I will hit send. So I make sure that I call on in the minute, but not on the minute, because it is creepy if it hits your sales calls at 12 and it hits 12:01 seconds and then the phone rings. Like, that is a little weird, but you do want to make sure that you start off the entire sales process with, this is important, and I called you right on the dot. I called you exactly when I said I was going to call you on the booking page. So number 2, stop talking. 90-10 rule. 90 to 95% of the conversation should be your prospect talking, and you are just listening, you're taking notes, and when you do respond, you always make sure that you restate parts of what they said so it's clear that even though you're not talking, you're actually listening, because so few people actually listen. Then number 3 here is to, of course, take notes so you can actually respond appropriately with your personalized questions, which is number 4. I'm putting them all into one, so I do apologize. I'm supposed to do one by one, but let's go through the next one here. So price drop. Always let the prospect ask the price question. Respect objections. You never want to be passé or say, oh yeah, that's not really a big deal. It'll just go away. Take every objection seriously, because if it's being brought up by the prospect, they care about it, which means you should care about it, and you should give it the weight it deserves, even if you don't think it's all that big of a deal. Be respectful of your prospects. And finally, and most importantly, release the hold on the yes. The moment that you can let go of the results of the sales call, the much better a salesperson you're going to be. Now, this might seem weird and be like, well, how do you not care? That's something that those sales books will help you with. It's something that I struggled with for years, because it is really, really hard to not put all this time and energy into something, and it's really hard to not be on a 45-minute call and then to have a no at the end of it and you're just sitting there like, I don't know what I do wrong? What did I say wrong? Sometimes you're going to get no's. That's just part of sales. So as soon as you can release the need for every sales call to end in a yes, then you're going to have a lot more fun with these calls and they're going to be a lot less nerve-wracking. So now we're going to rewind all the way back to the beginning of your funnel and talk about your prospect pool. Because once you have all of this set up and hopefully you're ready, good to go, now it's time to think about where on earth are you going to get the prospects to collect the contact information so you can magnify the mess, so you can get people on discovery and strategy calls with you. Now, there are lots of different ways to run traffic. There are only 3 strategies you should be using if you're trying to book discovery calls and you're trying to get clients. So these 3 are the best ones to start with, and each one is just going to depend upon your marketing preference and of course your budget. So you have paid advertising, you have content, and then you have networking. So inside of paid advertising, you can either do Google search ads where you can specifically target people who are looking for your specific business, or you can do YouTube ads where you are creating 45-second to 90-minute ads, pre-roll ads that direct people to download your lead magnet, your audit, your template, your resource, or your report. Then on the content side, if you decide to go the content route, you only need to post 3 pieces of content. And I'll get to what those 3 need to be. You're either going to post 3 blogs or you're going to post 3 videos on YouTube. So obviously I'm a big fan of YouTube. And then finally, if you're doing the free route and you don't want to do content and you want to get prospects now because we have to let go of the need to have sales. So we'll go into Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. Now, when it comes to running paid traffic, we have a lot of deep dive tutorials just as long as this one. So I will link up in the description to a video that actually walks through how to set up your first search campaign. And that one actually goes through an example of how to generate leads for a services-based business. The same example we talked about here, a Facebook ads agency. So link in the description and the cards for that one. When it comes to YouTube advertising, I'll link up a video in the description that goes through how to set up YouTube ads as well. For both of those, with Google ads, you need anywhere from $20 to $50 a day. And if you're doing YouTube ads, you need something between $5 and $10 a day. Now, if you don't want to do paid advertising, content is the best way to go. And there's 3 different types of content you should start out with. You don't have to post hundreds of videos. You don't have to make tons of blog posts. 3 pieces is all you need to get started. You'll have a tutorial, you'll have a guide, and you will have a review. And that's it. I know you see lots of content marketers would just be screaming at the top of their lungs right now. But this is all you need to get started, especially if you go the YouTube route, because then you can actually take these and promote them, but I won't get into that. You're setting yourself up for success in both instances. So with a tutorial, just a step-by-step how-to guide, show prospects exactly how to break through a roadblock. This video is a perfect example. It's really, really long, but it goes through every step of the process to setting up your lead generation funnel. And you only have to make one. You don't have to make tons of tutorials in order for this to be successful. Then number 2 is a guide. And this is a what path to take. So you weigh the pros and cons of a decision and then help your prospects figure out which path to take. And then finally, we have a review. And this is where you're looking at the pros and cons of a specific product or service. So as an example, on this channel, we have tutorials like this one, and we also have tutorials about running YouTube ads and running Google ads. So that would be an example of a tutorial on how we try and help our potential customers. Then for a guide, we have videos that talk about the differences between different tools that can be used. So what's Tag Manager? What's the difference between Tag Manager and Analytics? When should you use one versus the other? And should you even bother using either one? And so this is just a simple guide that walks someone who's new to the digital advertising space, whether or not they even need to bother with these tools. And then finally, we have a review. This is actually from my personal channel, and this is a review of talking about 5 reasons why MailerLite is not a good idea. And so something that's really cool you can do with reviews is you can actually cut them up. You can do a positive and a negative, because the negative reviews tend to do a whole lot better than the positive ones, but at least you can actually get 2 pieces of content where you would have just had 1 video. So that's a quick little tip that I like to do a lot on my personal channel. And of course, there are free tools to help you figure out what these 3 content pieces should be. I recommend using the tool Ubersuggest by Neil Patel. You do have to sign up and create a free account, but you'll be able to do everything you need in terms of figuring out what types of tutorials, guides, or reviews you could make by simply typing in competitor websites, and this tool will actually show you their best performing content, and you can literally just look at those content pieces and create your own version. Obviously not copy, create your own unique version. And this is especially great if you're going to go the video route. Nobody's comfortable with video in the beginning. It's weird to just sit here and talk in front of a camera for a few hours. But if you're willing to do that, you can get a lot of great examples from blogs and then go ahead and create a video version in your own unique style. I highly recommend going that route. But if you don't want to wait for content and you don't have the money for ads and you just want to get started with something now, not necessarily faster than content or this other, but you want to get started with something now, then networking is a viable option. So when it comes to networking, what you're going to want to do is find LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups that are full of your ideal customers, your prospects. So you're looking for groups that are designed for your prospects. You don't want to be in a group full of other business owners like yourself. So let's say for some reason you're a dentist. Well, you're not going to go join a bunch of dentist community Facebook groups and professional LinkedIn groups. You'd be joining people, I don't know, the group of bad teeth or the group of I want dentures someday or something like that, right? So you want to make sure that you're targeting, this terrible example, targeting the community groups that are made up of your prospects, not made up of your peers. There we go. I should have just said that in the beginning, right? And once you're in those community groups, you want to engage like a normal person, no promotion. You never talk about your paid services. You never even link to your content. If you have some, you never link to your website. Any links are to other websites and other pieces of content. No sales whatsoever. You can still post on your own feed about your content or about your free lead magnet or your strategy calls, because people will naturally click on your profile, see what you're posting about, see who you are, or they'll reach out to you via DM, right? Or private message. And then in the private message, you can go through the process of getting them on a discovery call. So if we go back to our diagram here, you can see that the networking is the only one that bypasses this entire process and goes straight to the discovery call. Because when you're in a private message with someone, you're not going to send them a lead magnet and ask them to go through it and then ask them to go through your booking system and then ask for the pre-call assessment. You're going to just have a normal back and forth conversation, and sorry for hitting the mic, normal back and forth conversation, and then go into the discovery call. So that's why this is one of the things where you can kind of shortcut this process, although the amount of time and effort it takes you to go and build those relationships, you could have built an entire automated process by that point. And so that's why I'm not a huge fan of starting off that way, because you're going to spend a lot of time on social media, which I'm not a fan of anyway, and then you're going to spend a lot of time back and forth doing things that aren't as scalable, as opposed to building out this process and then doing the networking thing while you have both working at the same time. So thank you so much for watching. Sincerely hope you got some value out of this video. Let me know in the comment section below that you actually made it to the end. This was a long one, but we wanted to make sure that we put together a full done for you lead generation funnel template and guide, and hopefully this checked all of the boxes. If you have any questions, go ahead and do comment below. Hit that subscribe button for more deep dive videos like this one and some shorter ones. Of course, we're not always going to go this long. And until the next, keep building the business you love.